Constitutional Conversations is a series of discussions by America's leading scholars about the principles, framing, ratification, and implementation of constitutional government in the United States. This series is hosted by the James Madison Memorial Fellowship Foundation of Alexandria, Virginia.
This new book is different. It tells a big story, but it's the first of three, and it's chronological. So then the question is, where do I begin? 1780, well, I already kind of did that before, and that's too late. I want to tell the backstory, but now the backstory from the beginning. So why didn't I start, why not start with Magna Carta in 1215, or the English Revolution, the Glorious Revolution of 1688, or 1619 when the slavery comes to America. I could have started it in lots of places, but I'm starting in 1760 because in 1760, America is not America. It's a series of discrete colonies. And my claim, and I don't start in 1763 because I'm actually saying the process of America becoming America actually begins before the Treaty of Paris. And this hasn't been generally understood. And I begin in a courtroom in Boston, and they're debating actually British constitutional law and how it applies to America. It's called the Writs of Assistance controversy. And I changed my mind about all of this. John Adams, 50 years later, says, then and there, the child independence was born. And originally I was going to say, oh, he's just making that up. He's just saying that because he was in the room then. But the more I got into it, the more I realized it did start then. And why is he so emphatic that it started? Yes, because he was there and he's very self-centered. But much of the rest of American history is about credit claiming. Is it Massachusetts or is it Virginia? Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Who's responsible for that? Is the key date July 4th, and that's Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the draft? Or is it July 2nd, when we actually declared independence, and John Adams was maybe more of a figure there? Adams is insisting later on in life that before there was Thomas Jefferson, before there was Patrick Henry, before there was James Madison, and really, he's even trying to push Washington to the curb a little bit. Before there was Washington and Franklin, it all started in Massachusetts in a courtroom. And I came to think, actually, although Adams is a crazy man, he's right. It did start before everyone else has told the story. And in a nutshell, here's what I say. There was a legal debate about British rule in America in this Writs of Assistance controversy. It's going to later become, it's all about searches and seizures, which is going to become the Fourth Amendment, okay? But more broadly than that, the story that I'm telling is Americans are starting to itch and agitate for independence even before Brits are taxing them, even before the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act and the Treaty of Paris. So mine is a story in which as soon, and the Americans aren't quite the patriots, the complete heroes because of this, because actually I think the British have a very good legal argument in the Writs of Assistance. But the Americans are itching and agitating, and here's why. Montreal has fallen. And as soon as Montreal has fallen, it becomes clear to the people in Boston. This is even before the Treaty of Peace. We don't need the Brits anymore. So it's like, when your 17-year-old realizes that, hey, he doesn't really need you guys anymore. He can be on himself. So it's like, Mom, Dad, can I have the car keys? Okay, that's Americans when they realize they don't need Mommy and Dad anymore. They don't need the Brits. They're itching to be on their own. And it's before the Brits even start taxing America. As soon as word of Montreal reaches Boston, they're starting to. Now, what isn't there in 1760, 61 is the rest of the continent paying attention. So it's a controversy in Boston, but the Virginians aren't paying attention. The New Yorkers aren't. The Pennsylvanians aren't. The South Carolinians aren't. And that will start to happen when Britain starts to tax them all, because Boston is much closer to Montreal, so it's feeling it first. From a narrative point of view, it makes the most sense to start my story kind of before there's an America. And one final thing, it's dramatic because here's what happens in late 1760. In December 1760, word arrives in America that they've got a new king. And what's really dramatic is they're very proud to be Brits. They are proud that the Brits have defeated the French. They're proud of their new king. They're toasting him. So from a certain perspective, as an historian, how is it that all that so quickly unravels? And 15 years later, within earshot of the Boston alehouses and taverns where they are toasting the new king, we're going to have shots ringing out against that king and Parliament with Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill.